Good morning, good afternoon, good whatever time of day it is, and welcome to, this video. Today I'm going to be discussing my thoughts on the upcoming Super Bowl, specifically just how these teams match up to each other, and who I think is going to win the game ultimately. So, as you can see from the chart on the screen, we have quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends, both offensive and defensive line, linebackers, secondary, special teams, and coaching. I'll be giving you my thoughts on which team has the advantage in each side, and then I'll finish it off with my prediction. So first up, we have the quarterbacks, and there isn't much of a debate here. Tom Brady is, in my opinion, the greatest quarterback of all time. He's looking to win his sixth Super Bowl, which would be an NFL record. Nick Foles is the quarterback of the Eagles, taking over for Carson Wentz after his torn ACL. Foles has had one of those odd careers where you think, which guy is he? His first year as a full-time starter, he threw 27 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and led the Eagles to the playoffs under Chip Kelly. After a up-and-down second season with the Eagles, he was traded to the Rams for Sam Bradford. He was not good under Jeff Fisher, but then again, neither was Case Keenum, and the two of them faced off in the NFC Championship game a couple of nights ago. Foles' big thing is his confidence. When he's confident and smiling and happy, you can see it, and he plays like it. Against the Vikings, you could see how animated he was at the end of the game. But then there's the times where he's not confident, and it turns into a snowball effect. If a couple plays don't go the Eagles' way, if he misses a couple throws, it can completely spiral out of control, similar to what we saw against Oakland on Monday night, where the game just seemed to keep going downhill for him after a shaky start. So it's pretty obvious that Tom Brady gives the Patriots a huge advantage at the quarterback position in Super Bowl 52. Next up, we have the running backs, and this is where it gets kind of interesting. The two teams have very different backfield setups. The Eagles have Jay Ajayi, Corey Clement, and LeGarrette Blount as their three main ball carriers. The theme here is power, power, and more power. LeGarrette Blount is famous for being a short yardage power back that's just difficult to bring down. Clement was an undrafted free agent out of Wisconsin who's kind of taken over for Darren Sproles this year in the third down back role for the Eagles, but he doesn't bring the same sort of elusiveness. He's easily the Eagles' best pass blocker, and he's a decent receiving threat, but at the end of the day, he still is a power back. He doesn't have a lot of speed or elusiveness. Jay Ajayi has been the Eagles' lead back in the 2 playoff games and has been getting the majority of the carries pretty much since his trade from Miami midseason. He is one of the best running backs in the NFL, in my opinion. He offers a good mix of size, speed, power, elusiveness, just about everything you want from a running back, and he's improved his hands in recent games. The Patriots, on the other hand, are famous, especially under Bill Belichick, for not knowing what they're doing with the running back position. Last year, James White was the hero in the Super Bowl. He scored 3 touchdowns, should have been MVP. This year, he's been pretty much a non-factor. It's been the Dion Lewis and Rex Burkhead show for the latter parts of the season. And in the playoffs, it's been mostly Dion Lewis. Against Jacksonville, however, it was mostly Tom Brady as the Patriots were playing catch-up. I'd give the Eagles the slight advantage here in the running back game just because they use them a little bit more effectively. The Patriots are very much built around Brady. The Eagles want to keep the pressure off of Foles as much as possible. And it's shown in the playoffs. The good running game has opened up the offense for Foles. Whereas the Patriots use their running backs as a complement to Brady. So, advantage Eagles. At the wide receiver position, these two teams are built very differently. The Eagles' top 3 receivers this year have been Alshon Jeffrey, Torrey Smith, and Nelson Aguilar. Jeffrey is an import from the Chicago Bears last offseason, signed a 1-year deal before signing a 4-year contract extension midseason. He started off slowly, didn't have much chemistry with Wentz at the start of the year, but he's hit his stride and he scored 2 touchdowns against the Vikings last week. Torrey Smith has struggled with drops all season. He's had his fair share of clutch catches and big plays, but he's also had a number of huge drops. In the NFC Championship game, however, he was more about the clutch plays. He did have an early game drop, but more than made up for it with the touchdown off the flea flicker to pretty much put the game out of reach from the Vikings. And then there's Nelson Aguilar, who the first years of his career looked like a complete and total bust and another waste of a draft pick from the Chip Kelly era. Under Doug Peterson, this year, he's moved inside to the slot receiver position, where his elusiveness and quick feet have been used to a much greater effect. In addition, he's more confident, and he's made big plays when necessary for the Eagles. Against the Vikings, he wasn't used as much, which many, including myself, were surprised by, considering the obvious mismatch he had with the 39-year-old Terrence Newman. But Aguilar has made a ton of big plays this year, and it would not be a surprise to see him have a huge game against the Patriots, considering their lack of depth in the cornerback position. For the Patriots, they have Brandon Cooks, Danny Amendola, and Chris Hogan. Cooks is your bona fide deep threat. He's one of the best deep threats in the NFL, very fast, very shifty. He's very good at getting separation from his defender, no matter who it is. Danny Amendola has taken over the Julian Edelman role in wake of Edelman's torn ACL, and he's performed it very well. He had 2 touchdowns against Jacksonville, including the game winner. And then Hogan is just kind of the third guy, but obviously the Patriots' offense in the passing game, their best receiver is Rob Gronkowski, and we'll talk about him a little bit later. I'd give this a draw in terms of overall talent and how it's utilized. I think the Eagles have a little bit more talent at the wide receiver position, but Tom Brady just makes these receivers play so much better than they actually are. So I give it a draw. And now we have the tight end position, and there's really only one way this is going to go. Rob Gronkowski is the best tight end in the NFL right now in this generation, and perhaps the best tight end in NFL history. He is a mismatch everywhere you line him up. He's bigger than most safeties. He's faster than most linebackers. And if they ever want to put him out wide, he will bully every cornerback he faces. The one concern with him is injuries. He's had his fair share of injuries throughout his career, and currently he's still in the concussion protocol. And while it's expected that he clears in time for the game, you never know with concussions, and if that's the case, the Eagles get a huge advantage in the fact that the Patriots don't have Rob Gronkowski. But the Eagles' tight ends are no slouches either. Zach Ertz has become one of the best tight ends in the NFL this year, thanks to the deep threat added by Torrey Smith, Alshon Jeffrey, and the improved play of Carson Wentz. Ertz was arguably the Eagles' leading receiver this year. He led the team in catches and in yards, tied for the team lead in touchdowns. And then backups, they have Trey Burton, who's a very underrated tight end. Will probably get a lot of money this offseason, considering the work he's put in when Ertz was injured this season. And then there's Brent Selleck, the longest tenured Eagle. Doesn't really get much work in the pass game or the run game, or as a run blocker. But he's another body, and the Eagles use all three well, especially in their jumbo packages. And it will be, the Patriots obviously have the advantage, but it's not as big as many people would consider it to be. Now we have the offensive lines. The Eagles' offensive line from left to right is Halapoulivaati Vaitai, Stefan Wisniewski, Jason Kelsey, Brandon Brooks, and Lane Johnson. Vaitai is a second-year player out of TCU, drafted in the 5th round, playing left tackle this year because Jason Peters tore his ACL and MCL against the Redskins on Monday Night Football. He started off struggling a little, as any young player would do, but Vaitai has come into his own lately, especially in the NFC Championship game where he completely shut down Everson Griffin, one of the best pass rushers in the NFL. Wisniewski, the left guard, was on the bench at the start of the year because Isaac Seumalo was the left guard. But Seumalo struggled against the Redskins in Week 1 and the Chiefs in Week 2. So Wiz came in, rotated with Chance Warmack for a bit, and then eventually became the full-time starter. He's been a decent left guard. He's not great. He's not bad. He's very good lead blocking for screens, especially when you get him running in front of Jay Ajayi or Corey Clement. Against the Falcons in the divisional round, there was one screen where he knocked down 2 guys in the space of about 3 seconds. Then you get to Jason Kelsey, who has had a very up-and-down career. At times he's looked like one of the best centers in the NFL, and there's been times where he's looked completely overmatched. This year, he's been the best center in the NFL. He was named first team All-Pro earlier this month, and he is one of the best centers in the game in getting out in space. Him, along with Wisniewski, form an incredibly talented lead blocker for Jay Ajayi or Corey Clement, and allow the Eagles to get very creative in their screens and their run game because Kelsey can get out in front of almost everything. That's his speed. Brandon Brooks has been one of the best right guards in the game since he signed with the Eagles. Very underrated. He was elected to the Pro Bowl this year. He, along with Kelsey and Wisniewski, are very good at getting out in front of the runners. And then you have Lane Johnson, also named first team All-Pro this year, one of the few good draft picks from the Chip Kelly era. He's arguably the best right tackle in the NFL, and he plays like it. Some thought he'd be the eventual heir to Jason Peters on the left, but he's become so good on the right that you have to think the Eagles will just keep him there forever. The Patriots' offensive line from left to right reads Nate Solder, Joe Thuney, David Andrews, Shaq Mason, and Cameron Fleming. It's not the elite offensive line that the Eagles is, but it's not a bad one either. They wouldn't be here if it was. Their weaknesses are left guard Joe Thuney and the two tackle positions, which coincidentally helps the Eagles out a lot, and I'll get to that when I talk about their defensive line next. So now we'll talk about the defensive lines a little. And this is, in my opinion, the key to the game for the Eagles. The two teams to beat Tom Brady in the Super Bowl were the New York Giants and the New York Giants. Both of those teams could get pressure by rushing 4 and dropping 7. The Eagles are going to have to do that, or they will be in for a long night. They can take some solace, though, that the Jaguars and the Falcons did the same thing, except they didn't have the depth that the Eagles have, and they tired out in the fourth quarter, allowing Brady to pull off 2 pretty impressive comebacks. The Eagles run too deep on the defensive line with ease. Vinny Curry starts at right defensive end, but Derek Barnett can fill in there very admirably. Fletcher Cox is one of the best defensive tackles in the game, and next to him is Timmy Jernigan. They are backed up by Bo Allen and Destiny Vio, two of the more underrated backup defensive tackles in the league, although Vio will probably be inactive, as he was in the divisional round before being active in the conference championship game when Donnell Ellerbe was hurt. At left defensive end, the Eagles have Brandon Graham and backing him up is Chris Long, a former Patriot. On obvious passing downs, the Eagles move Graham inside, bring Long and Barnett in, and just attack the passer. The fact that they rotate their defensive line so much will be huge for late in the game when they need to get pressure and won't be as tired as the Jaguars and Falcons were. That is the key to the game for the Eagles. On the Patriots side, they have good but not great players. Trey Flowers is a pretty good defensive end, and so is Malcolm Brown at defensive tackle. But their other guys, Lawrence Guy, Alan Branch, and Adam Butler, are merely average to below average players at best. The Eagles should have no problem running the ball against this Patriots defensive line. And now we have the linebackers. Both of these teams run a 4-3 defense, so they each start 3 linebackers. The Eagles start Nigel Bradham, Michael Kendricks, and Donnell Ellerbe. Ellerbe, of course, is replacing Jordan Hicks, who was lost for the season with a ruptured Achilles in the same game that Jason Peters went down. Bradham is one of the NFL's best linebackers in coverage, and he will be crucial in covering Rob Gronkowski to ensure that Gronk doesn't run all over the Eagles. Michael Kendricks is a very athletic linebacker who has come under some criticism in years past for just not playing well, but this year he's had a huge resurgence and has become a vital part of the Eagles' linebacking group. Ellerbe is a backup. He plays sparingly and comes off the field on obvious passing downs for an extra defensive back, for some speed, and just the fact that he's old and isn't a great linebacker anymore. On the Patriots side of the ball, their starting middle linebacker and star, Dante Hightower, was lost for the season early on this year. As a result, they've basically played 2 linebackers for most of the season, Kyle Van Noy and Landon Roberts. Neither one is particularly good, so once again, advantage Eagles. In the secondary, the Eagles have 3 corners that they rely on pretty heavily: Ronald Darby, Jalen Mills, and Patrick Robinson. Each one is good in their own way. Darby is very fast, very athletic, and is very good at breaking the ball up in the air. Mills is very athletically limited, and it's why he fell to the 7th round in his draft. But he's a fighter. He loves to compete. He has his signature finger wag, and he's always looking to make a play, which sometimes ends up costing him. Patrick Robinson has pretty much saved his career in Philly this year. He was very nearly cut in training camp after a bad start, but after the trade for Ronald Darby, he moved inside to the nickelback position, where he's thrived. He leads the Eagles team in interceptions and had a crucial pick six against the Vikings last week to pretty much jumpstart the Eagles' victory. Robinson is likely going to be covering Amendola, or the quasi-Edelman, as Amendola is very shifty, as is Robinson. As for Darby and Mills, the Eagles tend to keep their corners on the same side of the field, so it will be up to the Patriots to decide where they want to put Cooks. Do they want to put him on the speedy Darby or the slow Mills? My guess is they'll try to get him on Mills as much as possible. At safety, the Eagles have 3 guys that they use quite a bit: Malcolm Jenkins, Rodney McLeod, and Corey Graham. Jenkins is by far the leader of the 3. He plays a variety of different roles for the Eagles. He'll play down in the slot along with Patrick Robinson when the Eagles go to their dime package. He'll play as a linebacker sometimes, and he'll play the traditional strong safety role. He could also be seeing a lot of time against Rob Gronkowski, as he's a lot smaller than him, but he has some of the speed that Bradham doesn't have. And it'll be interesting to see how the Eagles try to combat the matchup that is Rob Gronkowski. Graham and McLeod are more of your traditional free safety center field guys. McLeod's known for his big hits, and it cost the Eagles against the Falcons, as he laid a vicious hit on Mohamed Sanu, was flagged for it, and it led to a Falcons touchdown. Graham has played a little bit more in recent weeks. He had an interception against the Vikings, although it was very late on, and he's more of a depth guy, but he does play quite a bit. On the Patriots side of the field, they have 2 really star corners in Stephon Gilmore and Malcolm Butler. Gilmore came over from the Buffalo Bills this year and has played a very, very good year of football. Butler, on the other hand, has suffered a little. You might remember him from his heroic interception against the Seahawks in the Super Bowl a couple years ago. He then went on to become one of the NFL's best corners, but this year hasn't played like it. He's still been good, but he hasn't been the elite guy that he was a couple years ago. At safety, the Patriots counteract their limited linebacking core by playing 3 safeties quite a bit: Devin McCourty, Patrick Chung, and Deron Harmon. McCourty is their jack-of-all-trades guy. He plays pretty much everywhere on the defense, and all 3 are good, not great players, but they'll do their job. But the Eagles, with Malcolm Jenkins and Rodney McLeod, Ronald Darby, Jalen Mills, Patrick Robinson, I'd give them the advantage here. Next to last, we have the special teams, and I'm going to give the Patriots the advantage here, although it's pretty close. Jake Elliott had that 61-yard winner against the Giants in Week 3. He was signed by the Eagles after Caleb Sturgis went down in Week 1, and he's been a good kicker. He has a huge leg, but he has been prone to missing shorter kicks. He hasn't been great on extra points. He's missed a couple of 30-plus yarders, between 30 and 40 yards. And so I'm going to give the advantage to Stephen Gostkowski there, who's been one of the best kickers in the league for many years now. At the punting position, Donnie Jones is pretty good, but Ryan Allen is very, very good. He was 6th in the league this year in percentage of punts inside the 20-yard line, which is a lot better than Jones, who is down around the middle of the pack. So advantage Patriots again there. And then the Eagles special teams, while it's been great in recent years, took a bit of a step back this year, whereas New England's special teams was 3rd in the league this year in DVOA by Football Outsiders. DVOA is a statistic that measures value above the league average for any given unit on any given team. And New England's special teams has been far above the league average this year, so advantage New England. Last up, we have the coaching. And you might be surprised to see this, but I'm going to give this a draw. Yes, Bill Belichick is probably the best coach of all time, and he always finds a way to win, sometimes not so nicely. Spygate and all that fun stuff, Deflategate. But Doug Peterson has quickly become one of the NFL's best coaches, especially in play calling. from the flea flicker against Minnesota to put the game away, to the incessant screens to Ajayi that always seem to work, and God knows why, to the inside zone play to Nelson Aguilar against the Falcons to set up the Eagles' lone touchdown in that game. Peterson knows how to get his players to win. He's become great at press conferences, great in the locker room. Players love playing for him. And Belichick, he doesn't give off that same sort of feel. You get the impression that he is very sullen and players play for him because they want to win. Peterson seems like a player's coach, and he kind of feeds off the players, and the players feed off him. I'm going to give this one a draw, which leads me to my prediction for the game. You might call me a little biased here, and you're probably right. I'm an Eagles fan. But I'm going to give the Eagles the win here. I think it's going to be a close game. It's going to be very low scoring. But at the end of the day, I think the Eagles can do what the Giants teams of 2007 and 2011 did. I think the Philadelphia Eagles win this game by a final score of 17-13. Thank you. I'll take your comments down below.